about summer school, Saturday school? Please raise your hand. Wonderful. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your dedication to the kids. Thank you so much for being here. There are a few words from Dr. Guetta before we get started, and here she is.
Good afternoon again, y'all, and I was just going to ask you how many of you were here this morning in early after school for Saturday school, so just about the majority of you. I really, first of all, want to acknowledge you for having agreed to serve and help the children in our district that need that more targeted instruction on a 10-to-1. Really appreciate that. This afternoon, you are going to have the opportunity to hear Mr. Ramiro Leal, who is a consultant that we brought to this district to work with you on the 4th grade writing. And you have a document in front of you that is going to be used as a guide as he goes through the presentation. A little bit about Mr. Leal. He is a teacher. You have how many years of experience? 3 years of experience in the Edinburgh district, but I do want to tell you that he comes from a school that is very successful in student academic achievement. The school that he came from is Avila Elementary. Avila Elementary is maybe 98, 99% high, low socioeconomic. Just about every child is eligible for the free lunch. And that school has performed very well every year. Not only have met all the indexes, they've also have obtained all of the distinctions. So that says a lot about what happens in the classroom. So we are taking the opportunity then to have Mr. Leal share with us what are the things that he was doing as a classroom teacher that we know have worked. Now presently, he just started his new job in October as an assistant principal. So he's now working at an elementary school at another district as an assistant principal. So he brings that kind of background experience to us today. And what we're going to do this afternoon is that we want to engage you in group activities as well, because we know that it's important that you have the opportunity to talk to your peers and be reflecting on what is being presented, but then also have the opportunity to internalize the information. And definitely want to say that if you have a question, please do not hesitate to raise your hand, because it probably will be one that will benefit to be answered where everybody else can learn from what you're asking. Okay? I'm going to pass it on to Mr. Leal. This morning I was also at grade. We have the 7th grade teachers there this morning. We had very, very good attendance. I think it was just about everyone except 2 or 3 were not there. This afternoon we have English 1 and English 2. I'm going to head on out to that campus just in a little while. So if you see me step out, it's not that I didn't want to be here. I've been here most of the morning. It's just that I also want to go and engage with the secondary teachers from my district. So again, thank you, and I really appreciate all of you being here this afternoon. Thank you.
A few more housekeeping things before we get started. We have some highlighters over there on the table. They belong to Berlanga, but they are allowing us to borrow them if you need them. Also, Mr. Leal is going to be using a document camera, and all of the notes that he's writing on the documents on the document camera will be scanned and uploaded. So, please pay attention, take your notes, but also know that whatever his notes are will be available to you in Eduforia in the notes section. All right? Thank you very much.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. If you've spoken to people who come this morning, it was like minute by minute. We finished at exactly 11:02, 11:03. We completed the 3 hours exactly. We're going to try something a little bit different this afternoon to try to keep us awake. We just had lunch, right? And so we're going to talk a lot amongst our tables and then share with everybody else. Like I said, my name is Mr. Leal, Ramiro Leal. I'm coming from South Texas. And I'm going to help you out and explain some curriculum documents. This might be information that you're already aware of, and if you know more than what we're covering here, please don't hesitate to share with the rest of us. I think that's how we learn, that's how our students learn, by discussing with each other and collaborating together. We're going to go through this document. I'm the type of presenter that likes to create things, make things, so that we can take home. But what I really have to change in this presentation is go through that document, if not page, we're going to change it up. We're not going to go page by page like we did this morning. We're going to skip a couple pages, but really, really look into the document so that you know what's in it. I just think it's going to be more powerful for you to use it if we actually annotate on it and stuff like that. So if you, those people coming in, if you can invite them to your tables, because we really want to make this small group. We had 110, probably 120 was the expectation this morning. We had over 100 show up, so it was a really, really great turnout. And thank you for being here. Those of you who had a morning already, thank you for continuing your education. Now you're teaching, and now you're in the learning seat. So welcome, and I hope that you benefit a lot from this training. We are going to go through these documents, like I said, page by page. I'm going to try to explain everything without going too fast. Just understand that this is like a summative course. There's a very steady pace that I have to keep because of the amount of time that we have. We have from 1 to 4. So among those 3 hours, I have to cover the training binder, right? So we're going to go through that as well. One of the things that I want to point out to you before we start, one of the questions that we had this morning is we are going to be looking at the state's release documents and deciphering what do they mean. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm telling you to teach to the test. And the way I talked about it this morning was it's teaching to the standard, which is different. Okay, those of you who are seeking a master's degree in leadership or curriculum development, one of the things that they go over is about curriculum, instruction, and your assessment being all aligned. The assessment part is what we don't have any control of. That's our state test. What we do have control of is our curriculum and our instruction in our classroom. And so all I'm asking you is to look at the key words, because these key words that you see in these documents is how it's going to be assessed. So if our instruction uses these types of the same words that they use, we're aligning ourselves to how they're going to be tested at the end, right? We're not limiting them to what they can do, and you're going to see that some of the high-scoring essays have some creativity that those students weren't limited, or at least we're giving the freedom to write. Okay, so let me go ahead and get started. So this is our table of contents here. This is basically how we're going to break up our day, our afternoon. We're going to be going over the TA documents, the personal narratives, expositories, and then at the very end, what we did was the high-scoring essays. Along with the TA resources, we've actually extracted images from the last year. So if you taught 4th grade last year, these were some of your students that we pulled out their essays and showing them to you. So what an actual 1 looks like, 2, 3, and 4. And then what we did at the very end was that we added all the high-scoring essays. So the students from last year who scored 7s and 8s, their writings were extracted and given to you. And so we're going to talk about how you can use those documents when you return back to your classroom as well. Let's get started with our curriculum document. What I ask is that you try to write down as much notes as you can as we look at these documents. And that'll keep us very busy, right, awake. And if you have any questions, please, like I said, raise your hand and we'll participate. And it'll spark a conversation amongst our tables and stuff like that, okay? So we're going to start with the blueprint. This is nothing new if you've taught 4th grade before. What I do want to point out to you is that there is 3 different reporting categories. Your composition, your revision, and your editing. That's how your test is broken up into the different parts. In the first reporting category, number 1, you have 5 readiness standards. Okay? 3 of those readiness standards is, 1 is to develop a draft, your rough draft. 1 is for the students to revise their paper, and this should be in your instruction already. 1 is to edit their paper, which are 2 different things. And then the other 2, 1 is your narrative, and 1 is your expository strands. So the 2 compositions that your students have to write come from those 5 readiness standards. Okay, your 2 compositions are 8 questions each. So 8 questions for your narrative, and 8 questions for your expository. Ladies and gentlemen, that right there, the 2 compositions alone, is 16 multiple choice questions. It's worth about 16 multiple choice questions. Before, with tax, if you didn't pass the writing portion, you weren't passing the test. Not necessarily now, and I'm going to show you an example of that. It just has to add up to the same raw score. So we're going to see that. So not necessarily, that's not going to change. I want to point out something too. The scoring model has also been different from what it was before. And this was a PowerPoint presentation that this is where I gained that knowledge from Victoria Young. And you can't see this, but I'm going to go ahead and explain it to you. And you can write it down there on the blueprint as well. This was uploaded in that file manager where the presentation skills are going to be. This piece. Before, in TAPS, the two raters would still rate the essay, so that's nothing new. But they had a perfect agreement model. You and I had to agree on what the child's score was. Now it's called an adjacent model. If I think it's a 3 and you think it's a 2, now the child can get a score in between, a 5. We don't have to necessarily have to agree on one score. So that's how now the range has changed from 2 all the way to an 8. Because it gets rated by 2 raters, and those 2 scores stay with the child. Okay? So the highest possible score that a child can get is an 8. And you can't, it's hard for you to see this, and we had trouble this morning, but I just wanted to include it as an overview, but people wanted to ask for it. These are the different ways it can be ranked. I'm going to explain it to you, all of it. If you can get 1 and a 1, it equals a 2, 1 and a 2, a 3. This is how precise the scores can get. And I just think it's a more fair way the students get evaluated because it gives them that in-between part. Okay? So this is how it's done. And you can't really see that, but it goes from 2 to 8, and it starts from very limited to basic to satisfactory to accomplished at the very end. So again, that's the adjacent model for you. Okay? And that's going to be in that file manager as well. Going back to our blueprint, that was to explain the 8 questions that are there. The revision part, this is the one that the students kind of dread to go through because it's the hardest one for them. And what we're going to do throughout the whole presentation is making reading and writing connections. So if you're also a reading teacher, that's going to be great because you're going to learn a lot of things, and if you haven't made that connection yet, you're going to make it today. So that's going to be kind of cool. So your revision part of your test is those comprehending skills that kids have to understand it. And it has 1 readiness standard and 3 supporting, which is 9 multiple choice questions. Your editing part is the last part. That's what the kids love. It's that what changed, if any. They're really good. They love those because they're so easy to do. And it has 6 readiness standards and 22 supporting standards. I just want you to put a slash forward right there because 6 of those readiness standards is, and I'm going to show you in a little bit why it's example. 6 of those readiness standards repeat themselves amongst the supporting. And you've probably seen it. If you look at that lead forward document, capitalization is a readiness standard, and then it's also in a supporting where it's historical documents, titles of books, I think it is, languages, stuff like that. So that's the 4 that go there. Okay, and I'm going to show you why all this is important in just a minute. The readiness standards, you have 12 total and 25, so you have more supporting standards, but look at where the majority of your tests will come from. Your readiness standards will make up 60 to 70% of your tests. So looking at your classroom, and again, this is aligning ourselves to what do we review? If we have some extra time, what standards do we go over or repeat? If the state tests the minimum number of readiness standards, then we're going to have 17 questions only come from readiness standards. Then we have the 17 supporting is going to give us 28 multiple choice questions. Now that makes more sense to us because we've seen that 28. If they get the max number of questions from the readiness, then that's going to be 20 questions from readiness and only 8 from supporting. So a total of 28 multiple choice. So how does this all come together? If you have 28 multiple choice questions, and then 16 possible points from the compositions, this is, remember, an 8 and an 8. Oh. Don't fall asleep, we just talked about falling asleep. There it is. There it is. So, the 16 questions come from the 2 8s that are possible in the compositions. Okay, that gives you your 44 items that the students get assessed on. Okay? And let me show you why that's important here. And again, this is just information so you know how to work smarter and not so much harder. Okay? You don't have this document here, but again, it was uploaded for you. You've probably seen this before, right? To find out if your students passed or not. This is the 44 items that we just pointed out. I want to make that connection to what we just went over and how your students will get rated on here. This year, the 14-15 school year, the students need to get 23 out of 44 questions right, which is a 52. Next year, 15-16, and I'm not by all means discouraging you to be a fourth grade teacher. Don't be frightened. I think by then we'll have a better understanding of this test. You'll need to get 27 questions out of the 44. The students will need a 61 to pass next year. Okay? The advanced performance will remain the same at about 84 to 85 score. They need to get 37 out of the 44 items right. Okay? And keep in mind where this 44 comes from. These are 28 possible multiple choice, 8 from your narrative questions, right, and 8 from your expository. So every essay is worth 8 questions, pretty much. That equals to your 44. This is at the very end part. It's a little bit more. And then we talked about skill scores this morning because I wanted to explain to you what those numbers meant. This is pulled straight from the TA website. Okay? That the raw score is simply the number of questions right. We probably already know that. But scale scores allow for direct comparisons of student performance between specific sets of questions from different desk administrations. And check this out. The scale score takes into account the difficulty level of the specific set of questions which it is based. Okay? I think it was 3rd grade this past year. The scale score stayed the same from the year before, but yet the raw score was different. I think it was 1 question more, if I'm not mistaken. It was a 50 to a 52, something like that. But the scale score was the same, of a 3,500, and then it was just the raw score that was different. Okay, so that's why that's important. Yes, it is a 52 to pass, but depending on the difficulty level of the questions. Okay? Let's go into our test design, which this is the next page. Know that your students have 4 hours to take a test. Okay? How you break up these 4 hours is how you've been teaching them this whole time, right? But I did it as about an hour and a half for the multiple choice questions, and then the remaining time, the 2.5 for the composition. There are some teachers who have them do the composition first, and then the multiple choice questions, some vice versa, to read the prompt, and then go on to the multiple choice questions. At this time, can we share, is there anybody who does it, or how you all do it, and then how you all do it, and what works best, and what do you recommend, what do you see in your test? And how you have your students administer the test. Do they start on the writing first, and then the multiple choice, or they do multiple choice, and then the composition? We'll start with there. Yes, ma'am.
We have them do the multiple choice first, and the instruction is that you can use the passages to help you with the composition.
That's a good idea. Is there anybody who does it the other way around? No? Okay. The state doesn't say which one they have to do first, but they always put the writing prompt in front of it. The way I taught my kids is you read it, right, and then you keep going though. Don't ignore it to the very end. I still have them read it and then go on to the multiple choice questions. Okay? So that's how your day is broken up. You have 4 hours. So eventually you're going to teach your students to write a composition in your classroom within the 2.5-hour time frame that you have. Remember that your students, your special pops, you have extended time. So if they benefit from it, make sure that you recommend that to your LPAC committee. Your day 1, now it's not a mystery anymore. Look at the bottom. This is from December 2014. You can't see. At the very bottom, it's December 2014. So this was just released. I think before it was a mystery, right? I don't think they literally told us what it was. But now they're saying that day 1 will be a narrative composition. Okay? And then you have your multiple choice questions. And this is something that I learned from you, that your revision skills will be assessed with one passage, and your editing skills will be assessed with the other. Your revision skills, let's make a little side note. These are like your reading skills. Hopefully your students by now can differentiate from revision and from editing. This is your topic sentences. This is your closing statements, or concluding statements. This is your combining. And your details, your supporting details. taking away details that don't belong, or inserting different supporting details. That's all your revision part. Okay? And why am I telling you this? This might be a little good thing to include as your daily message if you do something in the morning. I know some of the balanced literacy training from before was to incorporate like a daily, like today is, and then you start with the date, and then what day of the week it is, and we will do, and then you kind of focus on something with the revision skills. That's usually where they have a hard time. Maybe combining a sentence, or what is it mainly, what is this paragraph mainly talking to you about, and you identify the topic sentence there as well. Your editing part, that's when this comes in. Your verbs, your spelling, your punctuation, that's where all that comes from. Okay? And then you have your revision and editing. This is the field test questions on day 1. On day 2, you have a expository prompt, and your 3 passages for the different multiple choice. You have the revision skills, 1 passage of editing, 1 passage of editing as well. Okay? The types of writing prompts, and these are the type of selections. This one, I've never seen this one, or could identify that. You know, persuasive text, and the students have to answer questions on it. That'll be interesting to see if already has come out, but I haven't seen the way a persuasive text looks like. The students have to do the revision and editing skills on it. But it's pretty neat that part of it. And I think that's in our TEKS too. We're not assessing it, but we still have to cover it. This is to show you an example of it. This is the answer key from the 2014, and I know it's hard for you to see, but you have your prompt, which is reporting category 1, and then the first 5 questions are written on the revision part, reporting category 2, and then you have all the editing. Same thing here. You have your prompt, your revision, and then all your editing. Okay, that's how your test is broken up as well. So have your students understand the differences between what revision and what editing is. Okay? Let's go on to our assess curriculum, which is this part here. This one? Is that the next page that you guys have?
Yes.
This will make sense. We'll start connecting it. We have to review these documents to kind of give us the background information of what we're going to do, and then we're going to start going to the rubrics, the scoring guides, and then eventually how to actually score the essays. So that's what we're going to do. Let's take a look at our assessed curriculum, just to kind of demonstrate the skills that I was telling you. Reporting category 1 is your composition. This is what I was telling you about being the 3 same skills. And you usually teach this in your writing process, right? You probably have it up in your room somewhere where you develop the drafts, you revise the drafts, and then you edit them. You also have your narrative experiences here. Write about important personal experiences. Right here, do me a favor and put that it's a specific moment in time. In time. This requires critical thinking. And you've all probably been it where you get them, you pass out a prompt, and then they get stuck, right? I don't know what to write this. It's not so much that they don't know what to write, it's because we probably haven't given them the opportunities and chances to think critically. If you think back to the passages, the prompts that we've done in the past, they were very specific. Right about the time someone told you that you did a great job. It's like, whoa, you know what I mean? Like, you really have to think and say, when did somebody tell me a good job? And then this fast was right from the time you have to make voice. It's like, boom, it's very, very simple. When before it was like, right about the time you went on a special trip, or right about the time you went somewhere special, or right about the time, just very general. And now we're seeing like a kind of narrowing down to it. So that's very important for you to keep in mind as well. And prep your kids to do that. Maybe to share orally. Today's problem. And it's not teaching to the test. It's just giving them the opportunity, aligning yourself to be ready for that critical thinking question that they're going to come across with at the end. This is your expository part. And here, what I've noticed is that it's right about and a noun. We've seen favorite place this past year. That was released, right? And then we've also seen, I think, a person, write about a person that means a lot to you. So thinking about, you can't see. Thinking about what the nouns, a person, place, or a thing, I'm thinking is that maybe now it's going to be a thing, right? A person, place, or a thing. So maybe now a prized possession, maybe their Xbox, their tablets, their cell phones, and an expository composition on those type of things. And you're going to see that the high-scoring essays are the most unique. The ones that you just, wow, that was just amazing. That's a good essay. Very unique. So keep that in mind. The idea part, you know, they write about why it's important to be responsible. That's for 7th grade. And why am I telling you this? When you're making your decisions on what documents to use, what commercial products to buy, that's what you got to look at. It's got to be aligned to how they're going to be assessed. Because there's documents out there, there's some products out there that are just way off tangent. You're just confusing them even more. Like just stick to, you know, how it will come out and then give them different opportunities to try that. Okay? There's some products out there that still haven't gotten that understanding, so it's for you to make that connection. The second reporting category is the revision part. Okay? This right here gets assessed by combine and revise. Right? So give them the opportunities to do that with their students. Maybe in groups, right? Let's all write down 2 sentences. What's the best way to combine it? And then they share it amongst each other. Okay? And then here, this is the revision part. Students will have to know this. The central idea, supporting sentences, and the concluding statement. This one, if you have children in middle school, high school, or even yourself, if you just went to college, this will eventually grow up to be their thesis statement. It's preparing them, it's aligning themselves to be ready for that thesis statement, for that main idea in reading. Right. That's what your central activity really is. Your details and your concluding statement. Your closing statement. And I'm telling you these words so that you can use them in your instruction, so that they're coming straight out of the text, you can incorporate them in your everyday conversations with them. What would be a good closing statement, guys? You know, with them. And then you don't have to only do writings for STAR if you're doing some type of authentic writing for you're writing a school newspaper, right? What's the best way to close this paragraph here? And then they can practice using that. And it's very aligned, but if you're not limiting them also and keeping them to just a line paper and writing a STAR passage, you're just applying that skill in elsewhere, in other places as well. Okay? And these are your editing parts. This is the one that they love the most, right here. And this is, for me, it was an eye-opener this year. Like you said, that I've just got another job, is that I was doing a walkthrough in a 2nd grade class, and the same lesson that I did on pronouns was the same lesson she was doing. And I said, what? And for me, it was like a big eye-opener. So these kids haven't seen it, and then I go kinder, and they're working on capital letters, punctuation, and spacing. I'm just like, that's what I was thinking too. And nothing different, the same anchor charts, the same thing. So just know that your students have heard these type of things in the past. Now the difference is going to be for them to recognize, let's write that down, for them to recognize and use the right one. That's going to be different. So, and it's happened to me where my students would go to another teacher and I'd get the complaint afterwards and say, oh, your students don't even know what a verb is. They're not going to, you've never seen it where the students, what is a verb? What's the definition of the verb? And then the different aspects of the definition. It's not like that. It's applied. It's kind of, if you think of your Bloom's taxonomy, yes, remembering what verb is important, but then there has to be something further. It's applying it, right? It's identifying the right one. So just keep that in mind when your editing skills come about. Don't focus so much on, they still don't know what a verb is, they still don't know what a verb is. It's recognizing the right one. Meet, met, and so on and so forth. It's at a higher order. And that for me was a big eye-opener. So 5th grade teachers just know that there's, our standards are aligned, they're supposed to be taught in the lower grades also, capitalization, punctuation, spaces between words, you know what I mean? That's simple. And in 2nd grade, I've also seen, I've also seen them work on pronouns, possessive, the same thing. Okay, so just That's why I wanted to throw that out. You don't have this there, but I wanted to point this out what the narrative looked like. This is your obsessed personal narrative, so it's not a secret. You don't have to guess what genre they're writing about. It starts with the hook, with the theme, and they'll write about a time. What I did for my kids is I would alternate the word time to occurrence, event, just to expose them to the different synonyms of what time can be presented by. What I did write, though, is down here. This is what I was telling you about, and I'm going to make it all afternoon, the reading and writing connections. What a personal experience really means is a story. First person point of view, it has to be, it's a personal narrative, so it has to be coming from you. So of course they have to use first person, making that connection, and assistant. If you're not the reading teacher, she's going to appreciate this a lot. Your dialogue as well. You have to include dialogue. Organize your writing just means that make sure your story has a beginning, middle. Can you see that? A beginning, middle, and an end. And what I taught my kids was that your climax answers your prompt, responses to your prompt. So that happened. One of the things that you're going to see when we go through the different essays is, man, kids just need to get to the point, right? Because we sometimes, and it's not their fault, it's just they haven't been directed that way, is they wake up, they brush their teeth, they get in the car, they drive to the thing, get off the car, right? And we've seen that the higher scoring essays are the ones that just start there. Yeah, you've gone there, you're safe, now tell me what happens there. And another thing that we're going to see is that it's going to be quality, not quantity. Okay, so if we're one of those that instills, you have 3 lines, Claudia, right? You finish the 3 lines. You're going to see that that's going to hurt them. It's going to be counterproductive. Okay, so just keep that. And I'm going to show you that. So that it's not necessarily fill up the 26 lines from the very beginning to the very end. Just don't write outside the box. It's not so much as that. It's the content, whatever the thing. You're going to see that the students can have fun with their writing. We're going to talk about those things too. This is what the expository looks like. You have your read, and usually a definition or something here. You think about and you write about. This is what I was telling you, a noun about a person, place, or a thing, probably. Right? I'm leaning more towards a prized possession, something valuable to them, something that was given to them. It means a lot. That clearly states your central idea. That's your main idea. Develop your writing, use similes, examples, and facts. And now that's a change from before. When Star first started, I don't know how many of you were in the same boat as I was, but we thought it was third person because we, in our readings, we saw that expository is mainly like on the island in Hawaii. It's just, this is the location, this is where it is, this is the climate, just very memorable information. But then you start looking at it and it says, write about your favorite place and describe the place and explain what makes it special. So the students really have to voice their opinions about why that place is special to them. So that changed my thing. So before, from only keeping a third person point of view, only using the very general, now I can think like, no, make sure you set examples of why that place is your favorite. Make sure that you're saying why. You're including similes in there, you're including thoughts in there of why that place is special to you. And some of the documents that were uploaded, and I found these on the web, is we created little prompts for us, right? And it's in the same format. Again, it's not teaching to test, it's aligning ourselves to how they're going to be assessed. You look at the picture, there's a little picture there of him in a little mountain, and then I would put the statement, sometimes it's difficult to overcome certain things. Right about the time you overcame a certain challenge. And then so it's not a shock to them when they break over the seal and they see they're familiar with it, right? You're exposing them. This is the expository. Read the information below. There's a definition. Again, making the reading connection. What is the definition? Maybe you might have multiple definitions. Think about the object or item that was given to you. Write about your favorite object and explain why it's important. And then this stays the same. So your students will get really good at it, because what I saw before is if they're not instructed on how to react to this, is that there's a picture of little boys in the camp or whatever, or something, and then they're going to read about it. Right? If there's kids at the zoo, they're going to write about it, because they see the picture, and that's what, maybe they might not have another option, but they want to, they want to satisfy what you're asking them to do, they want to work for you, and that might be the easiest thing there for them. So just expose it to them, and I actually included some blank ones as well. I found this on the web too. PowerPoints with the different set out the same way so that you can expose them. And right now, having 2 months left, that's what we should be working on, exposing them to be ready. This is just sample. You don't have this video, but I'm just going to go through it really quickly. Is to show you what revision questions look like. Right? What is the best way to revise a transition word, a supporting sentence? And look at this one. And in 2011 release, and I'll never forget it when I saw it when they released it, was there's a Girl Scout cookies, and if you've taught 4th grade for this long, you remember. There's a Girl Scout cookies one, and it says which way wants to improve the meaning of this sentence. And the thing is, gets better. So the kids right away thinks gets better means improve. So they put improve. But the context of the sentence was like the little girls to get better. It actually meant she was trying to say mature. So it's not so much like a literal definition, it's comprehension. If you really, really think about it, it's comprehension and vocabulary as well. And this is something very similar to it, improve the sentence. Give the students the opportunity, when you're giving them, and it's, again, going back to the balanced literacy, you're reading something, X it out. What would be a better word for this? And just doing that think aloud, just like you do the read alouds, do a write aloud too. Give them the opportunities to do that and instruct them in that way too. So let me show you just some examples. This is your topic sentence. He needs a topic sentence for the 7th paragraph. So you're reading a page from your basal and say, what's the central idea here of this paragraph? And then we can pinpoint it, we can talk about it. And it's not a shock to them when they receive it. It's just the conversations in your classroom that have to be aligned with itself. Your central idea, thesis statement, your main idea. Your editing ones, they love these. What change, if any? Right? This to them is the easiest. This one, what clearly wants to add a sentence that clearly states her topic. Combine, delete, and then the closing, the concluding statement. Okay, so if you have these conversations with your students, they're going to be better prepared. And what I did is I just created this thing for me to see. I wanted to understand what this meant. Because you revised it.